Hello and welcome to the Buy Low Fantasy Sports Show with Mitch and Bam. I'm Mitch and he's Bam. Bam, say hello.
How's it going, everyone?
Just to give y'all a quick intro, Bam and I have been playing fantasy sports for about a decade now. We're just trying to dip our toes into this creating YouTube content to share our thoughts and strategies that we're finding this year regarding value in season-long drafts.
Yeah, we always want to be thinking about value. ABTV, always be thinking value. That's right. So we don't want to, say the same stuff everybody else is saying out there. So we want to focus on, who we think our value guys are, who you can get for cheap, and to maximize our draft profits this year.
Yeah, and since we've been harping on value so much, I think it's important that we talk about some of the value that we're seeing in our fantasy football drafts thus far. So, to kick this segment off, Bam, you want to start off by talking about some of the valuable players that you're finding in the early rounds of the draft?
Yes, nobody from the Browns or Texans, but seriously, I'm looking at Dalvin Cook from the Vikings. He can be gotten around the second round if he can stay healthy. I think Dalvin Cook can be a top five running back this year. The Vikings kind of beefed up their offensive line, and one of their key contributions, they brought in former Broncos head coach and longtime offensive coordinator in the NFL, Gary Kubiak, as a consultant and assistant head coach. One of the things he's famous for in the Mike Shanahan systems is those outside zone running plays that he ran a lot. So guess who's really good at running those outside zone runs? It's Dalvin Cook. And so I think, new emphasis on the run like they showed last year, a little beefier offensive line, and Dalvin Cook can also catch some passes, which he showed as well last year. I think this is the guy who could probably break the top five if he gets the opportunity and he can stay healthy.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing for me for Dalvin Cook is can he stay healthy all year? And so I kind of follow the philosophy with Dalvin Cook, some of these guys that show to be injury prone that you want to handcuff them in the later rounds. But I do agree that he could be a top five guy if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big F, but with everybody kind of reaching for those guys at the top, he's a guy that can get in the second, get some value out of him. So, who do you like in early rounds?
Yeah, so I like Mr. Todd Gurley. I know you're gonna be thinking, okay, I see this guy going at the end of the first round, beginning of the second round. How do you see value there? Right. I see Todd Gurley as a guy that could also finish in the top five, right? And I know people keep talking about and keep harping on that
His knee.
yeah, the Rams want to not overutilize him, and he's got that nagging injury with his knee, right? But if you look at his numbers from last year, this guy had 315 total touches, 1,250 rushing yards, 580 receiving yards, 21 total touchdowns. At a workload of 75%, that gives him 240 touches in that high-powered offense. I think he still hits 1,400 yards, 15 touchdowns, which is enough to put him right inside the top five running back. He's the eighth running back off the board, and he's going behind guys like Bell, Connor, David Johnson, but he's still going to get the lion's share of those touches in that high-powered Rams offense that we've seen him be successful in the past.
Yeah. So what you're saying is if he gets the same workload he got last year, and we reduce it about 25%, you're still looking at like an RB1, RB2 type season out of him. Probably an RB1.
Yeah, he's going to be a fringe top five guy with those numbers. So there's no way that, like I said, with him being the eighth running back off the board and with an ADP of 14, you got a couple wide receivers mixed in there that are going a little bit ahead of him. But that still puts him on pace to be the number five running back. There's
Yeah.
no way. There's no way I'm letting him slide past me if I'm drafting at the end of the first round.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential there because the entirety of the fantasy community doesn't want to touch this guy and they want to draft all his backup. So you grab him at the end of the first round, top of the second, and if he happens to hit for that workload, that you were talking about, then yeah, you got really good value there.
I agree. Are there any others that you feel like we need to talk about in this kind of early round piece of the fantasy drafts?
Yeah, I got a couple running backs in the third round, and we really want to highlight running backs because they're really the biggest part of fantasy football. So first one I got is Devonta Freeman from the Falcons. He's going in the third round. He's finally healthy after nagging injuries the last few seasons. The Falcons really beefed up their O-line. They drafted a guard. They signed some guys, and they already got that potent passing game with Julio, Ridley, etc. You combine that with they want to run the ball more. Freeman, as we know, when he was healthy, he had that red zone and goal line role. Here's a guy in the third round who could easily finish in the top 10 of running backs and really return value for you in the third round.
I agree, and I think Devontae Freeman. I'm kind of in the same boat with as I am with Dalvin Cook. I worry about his health. Can he? I haven't seen him finish a full season yet, so that's kind of what I'm.
Yeah, he's got that real physical running style.
Yeah, so I'm handcuffing him, but I agree. I like the value that you get in the third round right there.
Yeah, and I'm speaking of the third round. I'm also looking at Aaron Jones from the Packers. He's a guy that received a big push by everyone this summer, and that seemed to have cooled off a bit. And now he's kind of back to, instead of being a first, second round pick, he's a third round. He's back to being a value again. So he won't be a bell cow, which means he won't get all the touches, but he'll get 65 to 70% of the touches. And if Aaron Rodgers comes back to form, the passing game picks it up. They got this new system. You definitely see him as a guy as a running back one, high end running back two, and definitely a guy who could probably get double digit touchdowns. Because LaFleur is a guy that likes to run the ball in the red zone for what we saw him last year. And previously, Aaron Rodgers is a guy who likes to throw it a lot down there. So, yeah, I think Aaron Jones is good value in the third round.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think something that you and I have talked about in the past has been volume is king, right? Everybody knows volume is king. But a lot of times we want to look for quality volume. And so even though Aaron Jones may not be receiving all of the touches like a Ezekiel Elliott or a Gurley from last year, right? He's still going to catch and rush 65 to 70% of the time. I think he has that running back one upside just because of this offense. Green Bay has an awesome offensive line. So I think there's some of that high quality touches because I think they'll move away from throwing so much in the red zone. I think Aaron Rodgers was the number one quarterback to throw in the red zone last year. And I think they want to move away from that some. And so as they move into the red zone, I think you'll see Aaron Jones get a lot more touches down there. And that will, of course, result in more touchdowns, allowing you to capitalize on his fantasy position.
Yeah, and then you could see guys like Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson, they're starting to go off the board in the third. You can slide right in there and grab a starting running back. So if you're lucky enough to get running backs in round one and round two, go turn around and get a Freeman or a Jones in the third, you're set. You've got both running back positions in a flex, and you're good to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have guys to fill in case Devontae Freeman gets hurt. You've got Aaron Jones that can slide in your running back two slot, and so you're good, right?
Yeah, you're good.
So, did you want to talk on anybody else in the early rounds, the 1 through 3?
No, that's I think we're good on there.
Okay, let's go ahead and dive into the mid rounds. You want to go ahead and talk on your mid round running backs or value picks in those mid rounds?
Yeah, in the mid rounds, a guy I'm targeting is Tevin Coleman from the 49ers. This is Kyle Shanahan's boy from, back in the day with the Falcons. He drafted him, and he might not be a true bell cow with the 49ers because they have infinity running backs. But I think he's the guy that's going to lead the team in running back touches reasonably. You could see him get 250 touches this year. And another aspect of having Coleman in there is he's probably going to get a lot of those red zone touches, not necessarily just carries, but also targets, because the 49ers never don't have a true red zone guy. Even Kittle's not all that great in the red zone. So if he gets that solid red zone role, goal line role, I think Coleman's a guy that could push 1,000 to 1,200 total yards and 10 to 12 TDs this year, which puts him in the running back two conversation. And then if you get him in the 5th round, I think that's good. It's good value.
Yeah, one guy I want to talk about that's falling in this 4 to 6 range, what we're calling the mid rounds, is Austin Eckler. Now, this of course depends on the whole Gordon holdout situation, right? But if that carries on in the regular season, like many people think it will, I think the issue with a lot of the fantasy experts today is that they think that this backfield is going to be a 50-50 split between Eckler and Justin Jackson. I don't see that being the case. I think the Chargers are gonna look at featuring Austin Eckler just a little bit more. But I think over the course of the 4 games that Gordon missed last year, Eckler had the lion's share of the touches. In week 7, week 12, 13, and 14, Austin Eckler out-touched Justin Jackson 61 to 28. That's a big deal for me. 61 to 28. Now, of course, a lot of these were passing situations in which Austin Eckler got the receptions. And of course, Justin Jackson being a true rusher doesn't really fit that role. But Eckler has the potential, especially in PPR, in the half-point PPR league. He has the potential to be he's probably not going to be a running back 1 guy, but he's going to be a mid-range to high upside running back 2 that could get you, let's say, between 16 and 18 touches per game that may result in 100 yards and a touchdown per game. So you're looking at around 20 points per fantasy game, which is amazing from the 6th round with an ADP of 74. It's amazing upside.
Yeah.
The other thing to remember is that this Chargers offense is built to run the ball. And so I think it's a very friendly running back offense. And, of course, Rivers should change his name legally to Checkdown. So I think Austin Eckler is going to eat.
Yeah, he's going to eat. And, yeah, Rivers is getting old. That arm ain't as strong as it used to be. So he's got a little bit of Flacco syndrome. So, it's not just friendly for running backs because they can run, but it's friendly because Rivers likes to throw those short passes too as well. And they have a lot of design screens and stuff like that. So, yeah, Eckler's a good value in the 6th round. And even if Gordon does come back, he's a guy that tends to miss time. So you're going to get a couple starts out of him a year. Also, Eckler is a guy who's, even with Gordon in, he's going to get 5 to 10 touches anyway. So 5 to 10 touches out of your flex player who's a running back, that ain't bad in the 6th round. I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, I agree. Are there any other value plays you see in these mid rounds, the 4 to 6 range?
Yeah, in the mid rounds, I'm really looking at a guy like Tyler Lockett from the Seahawks. He's Russell Wilson's new number 1 wide receiver, and he's going to step into that slot role that Doug Baldwin had for all those years. That when Doug Baldwin was out last year, Tyler Lockett was in and dominated. So if the Hawks feature him like they say they want to, here's a guy who could easily sneak into that wide receiver 1 range and could be a league winner for you in the 4th round. So I do like Tyler Lockett a lot.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Tyler Lockett is the more Chris Carson gets hyped. I have heard more Chris Carson hype in the past week than I have all offseason. The more he gets hyped, the higher he slides up draft boards, the more Lockett is going to continue to fall down draft boards. And so I think right now he has an ADP of 51, puts him in the 5th round. I think he may slide to the bottom of the 5th. And so you may be able to catch him, at the end of the 5th, the turn to the 6th, and you're going to be able to grab a real value add because, of course, the Seahawks have a decent, a friendly schedule for pass catchers.
Yeah, and we also, that defense, it's so much turnover in the secondary, and the defensive tackle Reed is out, he's suspended, and Ziggy Ansah has got groin issues, which is bad news for any player, but especially for defensive linemen. So that defense is a mess right now. So they could be throwing quite a bit, even though they're with Schottenheimer as a coordinator. They try to be ground and pound. They could be throwing quite a bit this year. So yeah, Lockett's definitely a value in the fifth round.
Yeah, I agree.
And then another guy I want to look at in the mid rounds, about the fifth round, is Hunter Henry from the Chargers. He's a guy that's finally healthy. No Antonio Gates, finally. And this is a weird stat I found about him, but he averages 2.3 fantasy points per target. That's pretty good. So if he gets 5 targets, you got 12 points there, and he's probably going to get 5 targets most weeks because he's the only tight end there now. In addition to losing Tyrell Williams and probably Mike Williams, we're expecting him a little bit of touchdown regression. So that opens up some red zone value for him there as well. So when you see Kelsey, Ertz, Kittle come off the board in the first and second and third rounds and people going after O.J. Howard, just slide right in there and grab Henry in the fifth. And I think that's a good value for you right there.
Yeah, I kind of disagree with Hunter Henry here. It's not so much that I hate him as a player. I don't think the fifth round is a lot of value, gives you a lot of value in that position, at the tight end position. Hunter Henry, yeah, he's going to perform, but from the same token, he's not a guy that stayed healthy throughout his NFL career. He's not a guy that I expect to suit up all 16 games of the season, and so he's not that huge value grab. Like if I could get him in the ninth round, I love him a lot more. But for the fifth round, I think that's an awful lot of draft capital to put into a tight end that you expect to not even play half the game. So I disagree with this one a little bit with you on this one, Bam. But
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, it's definitely a risk, but hey, you gotta spend some money to make some money, right?
sometimes you do have to roll the dice. I agree with that, but
Yeah.
I'm not rolling the dice here with Hunter Henry. And as we move into our late round values, we'll talk on a guy that I really do like. Speaking
Yeah,
of late rounds, do you want to go ahead and kick it off with us?
yeah, so with the late rounds, there's not really a player specifically, but looking at these ADPs, I was a bit flabbergasted, if you will. Flummoxed would be another word. I want to target the Eagles passing game. I think a lot of people are looking past them for some reason because of all the freaking Browns and Texans hype, which, that's enough. So with Wentz finally healthy, the knee brace is off from his knee injury 2 years ago. They really beefed up their offensive line. They signed Deshaun Jackson, who's a big outside threat. I think Wentz can make a run for MVP this year. I really do. The entirety of the Eagles passing game, minus Ertz, who's going in the first or second, it just screams value. You can get Wentz in the seventh. You can get Deshaun Jackson in the 10th. You can get Alshon in the fifth. You can get Goddard in the 16th round. So there's a ton of value to be had here in the passing game that I think is being overlooked with a fairly easy schedule. They get to play the Giants twice after and the Redskins twice after all. That's a pretty easy schedule. I think, Wentz could be a guy who could be the MVP this year. He's real cheap in the seventh. Deshaun Jackson in the 10th. That's a good 1-2 stack for you after you build your running backs in the first 3 rounds. I think that's some good value.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, an interesting stat I found not too long ago was that over the course of all the games that Wentz played in last year, he finished as a top 5 quarterback in every single game, every week last year that he played, top 5. So where is all of that production going? It has to be going to somebody. Now, I get that Ertz is going a little bit earlier, third round, fourth round in some drafts, but there's other players on that offense that are going to capitalize off the Wentz being back and having a full offseason to practice with these guys to get timing right. And so I think that Wentz can be a guy that you can grab in the seventh round. He's going to perform higher than quarterbacks that are being taken ahead of him. So he's a value. And then, of course, Deshaun Jackson. We know what he can do. Alshon in the fifth. We know what Alshon can do. And so I think there's a lot of, just like you said, people overlooking this Eagles passing game. I think a lot of it's just the uncertainty. They don't know really who Wentz is going to favor on a week-to-week basis. But other than that, I mean,
Well, it's hard to pay attention to anything when everybody's talking about Browns and Texans nonstop. It's just it dominated the whole freaking offseason. You can't hear anything or read any article. It's not about Browns or Texans, Browns or Texans. So yeah, naturally, a lot of these, even the Chiefs, are going under the radar a bit. So yeah, this is definitely. If you got guys in your draft who are looking at Browns and Texans, swoop in and get some Eagles and get it, Joe, and win your league. So who are you looking at for your late round value guys?
yeah, I'm looking at Day Westbrook. This is a guy that I think will be this year's sleeper pick. Honestly, I can see a top 10 finish for him, and
Whoa.
he's being drafted in the 9th round. So there's a couple reasons for this. All right, the first thing is the Jags offensive line last year was
Terrible.
it was horrendous, right? But the thing
Was
about
it god awful?
it was god awful. But the thing
Okay.
about it was there were 3 guys that were playing injured all year long, not counting the right tackle that missed all season and the left tackle that missed all season. They are completely healthy now. I think they take a step forward, right? They were number 25 last year. If they get up to 20, I think that improves this offense that much. But the real reason I think this offense is improved is that they now have an actual quarterback, somebody that knows how to play the position. I think they had a converted running back playing quarterback last
Yeah,
year.
don't you dare besmirch the good name of Blake Bortles, sir.
Yeah,
Don't you dare.
yeah, and Blake Bortles. I think the Jags have a lot of weapons, and they have been missing a quarterback for the past 3 years. And I think amongst those weapons, the most talented is Day Westbrook. Now, to add to this, they have a new offensive coordinator, Coach Della Fipiolito. I can never say his name, so it's Coach D.
Coach Italian name. Yeah.
Yes. Now, he loves some slots. Look at what he did last year with the Vikings. This was a guy that targeted Adam Thielen 872 times a game. Nick Foles is also a quarterback that likes to throw to the slot. These 2 guys collectively slobber at night, salivating about how they're going to get the slot wide receiver more involved in the offense, which, of course, Day runs 99% of his routes from the slot. This offense is going to explode from a passing perspective just based on those things.
Yeah, you saw D.D. Westbrook break out last year, even with all the uncertainty on offensive line and, musical chair quarterback. Blake Bortles couldn't hit the side of a barn. So yeah, if you add in a guy like Foles, who might not be the best quarterback in the league, but brings some stability and can at least throw some catchable balls to D.D. I mean, he's a guy I could easily push for 90 catches in this offense. Yeah, it's a big value right here.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Coach D and Foles already have that chemistry between them because, of course, Coach D was the quarterback coach when Foles led him to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
I think that connection is being undersold as far as, they both love the slots. Just like you mentioned the other day, they go into a casino, they walk right past the craps table, they walk past the blackjack table, they're going straight to the penny slots. And who's a better penny slot than Day Westbrook?
Yeah, he's pretty good. So who else are you looking at in the late rounds?
I'm looking at a guy from an offense that a month ago I hated. But I'm looking at a guy
No,
named
don't do it.
Stills from
Don't
the
do it.
Miami Dolphins.
Oh no, the Dolphins, gross.
Yeah. So
Oh man, so we're getting nasty on the first episode.
yeah, we're getting nasty.
Oh man, this is
But
ugh.
yeah, so Kenny Stills has been the deep threat for the Miami Dolphins for the past couple of years, and he's managed to have some pretty good production with Ryan Tannehill, a converted high school wide receiver playing quarterback. And of course, now he has Ryan Fitzmagic playing quarterback for him. I'm about to shock you. Ryan Fitzpatrick hits 50% of his passes that are more than 25 yards downfield. Compare that to Tannehill's paltry 14% completion rate on a very similar number of throws. Ryan Fitzpatrick had 29, Tannehill had 31. So over the course of last season, Ryan Fitzpatrick hit 50% of his deep shots.
And what you're saying is 50% greater than 14%.
Yes, that's
That's a
exactly what I'm
that's a
saying.
shocking revelation.
Yeah, indeed. And so I think with Kenny Stills being drafted in the 16th round, I think this is awesome value. Do I expect a top 25 finish? Maybe. I think he's going to be more of a pop play, but overall, I think he's this year's Deshaun Jackson from last year, where Deshaun Jackson had a couple games where he disappeared, but then he came onto the scene and had a 45-point. So he'll probably have a game where he catches 6 balls for 27 yards, and then next week he'll catch 6 catches for 210 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, so he's a guy probably ride your bench most of the year, but you'll pick your spots to use him because he'll have those big pop games and help you win some weeks for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And if nothing else, wait for him to hit one of them pop games and then try to trade him, try to upgrade to your running back position or even for another wide receiver. So I think he could be one of those guys that you can kind of use as filler in a trade or bye week fill in, whatever the case.
Or hear me out. You could not draft any Dolphins. That's also an option. Because drafting a Dolphin, honestly, it's like trying to pick a turd up by the clean end. You just can't do it. It's not. I don't want to do that, man. Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's in the 16th round. He's basically free.
Yeah.
Leave him on your roster for a few weeks. I mean, some of you fools are gonna draft kickers there anyway. So leave him on your roster. See what he does, and then if he has a pop week, then you can move him.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I'm not expecting him to put up starter statistics. I'm not expecting him to put up.
He's good bench fodder.
Yeah.
So yeah, the other guy we're looking at in the late rounds is Austin Hooper from the Falcons. You can get him in the 9th round. So last year he started to click with Matt Ryan, and with some expected TD regression from Ridley because he caught way more TDs than he should have. Hooper's a guy that could get some extra red zone targets and probably a guy that could crack the top 10 tight ends this year with all the uncertainty at that position past the big 3. And another guy to tag on to this is, of course, Matt Ryan. Since we're talking about Hooper, might as well add him in. Matt Ryan's going in the late 6th, early 7th. Falcons play 13 of 16 games in the Dome. Their first 10 games are in the Dome. Why that matters? Throughout his career, 26 of Matt Ryan's 30 highest scoring fantasy games would come in the Dome. And last year, he averaged 4 fantasy points more in Dome game versus outdoors. So you're already getting a boost from him being in the Dome. And now you're telling me he's playing 13 games in the Dome this year? Yeah, so of course he's going to do better than last year if we kind of add all the evidence up. So yeah, I like grab Ryan in the 7th, grab Hooper in the 9th, and you got your quarterback tight end combo that goes with the rest of your team there. It's not a bad little haul in the late rounds there.
Yeah, I agree. And Austin Hooper's a guy, just like we were kind of talking about Hunter Henry in the last part of the segment where we were talking about the mid-round guys. I think Austin Hooper, year long, we're talking season long, outperforms Hunter Henry. And, of course, that adds value to that pick being in the 9th round versus a 5th round we were talking about with Hunter Henry. So you have that. Now you have a guy that's going to outperform somebody that's drafted 4 rounds higher than them. That's what I call value.
Why you got to bash my mid-round pick? No, I get it. Yeah, and I just think a guy like Henry has more TD upside, but Hooper's got TD upside too, especially in that offense. If that offensive line clicks and we got all these dome games, I mean, they're not going to not score any points. So even if the touchdowns move from Ridley to Freeman to Julio, Hooper's going to get some of those. And he clicked with Ryan last year. So it is a good spot there in the 9th round for him. Good value.
Yeah. So that's some guys that we think have really high value in the early, mid, and late rounds. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Buy Low Fantasy Sports. I'm Mitch. He's Bam. And we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.